The waitress broke a car window with her bare hands to save a trapped child. She didn't know his father was a high-ranking member of a notorious motorcycle club. When 299 bikers and their boss appeared at her diner the next morning, she thought she was in danger. They weren't there to threaten her, they were there to protect her. And that protection would change her life forever. The coffee pot shattered against the floor at 11:47 p.m., and Jessie knew it was going to be one of those nights. Sorry. She grabbed the mop from behind the counter, her sneakers squeaking against the linoleum. The trucker at booth 3 waved her off with a tired smile, and she forced one back. Her face ached from smiling. Everything ached, really. This was her second shift today, and Cody's school supplies weren't going to pay for themselves. Route 44 Diner sat like a lonely lighthouse at the edge of Millbrook, Pennsylvania, one of those places that existed purely because truckers needed somewhere to exist between midnight and dawn. The neon sign outside buzzed and flickered, casting red shadows across the empty parking lot. 5 customers tonight. Jessie had counted. She always counted. She was wiping down booth 7 when the sound came. Not a crash, a crunch. Metal folding into metal, followed by that terrible silence that comes right before people start screaming. Jessie's head snapped toward the window. Through the grease-smeared glass, she saw twisted chrome reflecting the streetlight, and then, flames. "Call 911, she shouted to Eddie, the night cook, already pushing through the door. The September air hit her face, cool and sharp. 30 feet away, a black motorcycle lay on its side, back wheel still spinning. A silver sedan had T-boned it, the front end accordion folded around a telephone pole. And fire, orange and hungry, crawling up from beneath the hood. A man in leather lay motionless on the asphalt, his body at an angle that made Jessie's stomach twist. But it was the sound that pulled her forward. A child's voice, thin and terrified, coming from inside the sedan. "Help! Somebody help!" Jessie ran. Her waitress shoes slapped against the pavement. The heat hit her first, a wall of it that made her eyes water. The driver's side door was crushed completely, but the back door was intact. She grabbed the handle. Locked. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." She cupped her hands against the window. Inside, a boy, maybe 7, maybe 8, was trapped in his seatbelt, pawing at the buckle with shaking hands. Behind him, flames were eating through the front seats. Jessie yanked the handle again. Nothing. She looked around wildly, for a rock, a tool, anything. The fire was spreading faster now, and the boy's screams were getting higher, more desperate. No time. She'd never broken a window before. Didn't know if she was supposed to use her elbow or her fist or what, but the boy's eyes were on her through the glass, wide and pleading, and Jessie made a choice. She turned her arm, pulled back, and drove her elbow into the window with everything she had. The glass spiderwebbed. Pain exploded up her arm, white-hot and immediate. She hit it again. And again. On the third strike, the window gave way, chunks of safety glass showering inward. "I've got you." Jessie reached through, ignoring the sharp edges tearing her sleeve, her skin. Her fingers found the seatbelt buckle. It was stuck, melted slightly from the heat. She pressed the release with her thumb, pressed harder, and finally it clicked. The boy fell forward into her arms. Come on. She pulled him through the window frame, his small body scraping against the remaining glass. He was crying, coughing, his face streaked with tears and soot. Jessie stumbled backward, clutching him against her chest, and ran. She made it 15 feet before the explosion. The force of it knocked them both forward onto the asphalt. Jessie twisted mid-fall, taking the impact on her shoulder so the boy wouldn't hit the ground. Heat washed over them, and behind her, the sedan erupted into a fireball that painted the night orange and gold. For a moment, she just lay there, the boy trembling against her, both of them breathing hard. Her elbow screamed. Her shoulder screamed. Everything screamed. "You okay?" she gasped. "Are you hurt?" The boy shook his head against her chest, unable to speak. Jessie looked back at the wreckage. The motorcycle. The man in leather, still motionless on the ground. "Your dad." "Not my dad," the boy whispered. "My uncle. My dad's over there." He pointed a shaking finger at the man on the pavement. Jessie's heart dropped. She set the boy down gently, then ran to the motorcyclist. Up close, she could see the insignia on his leather jacket, a black wind spiral with wings, and beneath it, bold letters, Black Wind MC. Her mouth went dry. Everyone in Millbrook knew about Black Wind. The motorcycle club that ran the roads between here and Pittsburgh. The ones people crossed the street to avoid. But right now, he was just a man who wasn't breathing right. Jessie checked his pulse, thready but there. His chest rose and fell in shallow gasps. "Stay with me," she said, though she didn't know if he could hear her. "Stay with me. Your son needs you." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Eddie appeared at her side, breathless. "Ambulance is coming." "Jesus, Jessie, your arm." She looked down. Her forearm was a mess of cuts and blood, her elbow already swelling purple. She hadn't noticed. The boy sat on the curb, watching the flames consume what was left of the car, his small body shaking. Jessie walked over and sat beside him, wrapping her good arm around his shoulders. "What's your name?" she asked softly. "Eli," he whispered. "Eli Maddox." "I'm Jessie." "You're safe now, Eli. You're safe." He looked up at her with dark eyes that seemed too old for his face. "You saved my life." Jessie didn't know what to say to that. She just held him tighter as the ambulance lights painted the street in red and blue, and the Route 44 diner's neon sign flickered behind them like a dying heartbeat. She didn't know yet that this moment, this single act of desperation and courage, would change everything. That by tomorrow, her name would be spoken in whispers across every motorcycle club in 3 states. That 299 bikers would come to thank her. That some debts, once created, can never be repaid. Only honored. Jessie's alarm didn't go off because she'd never gone to sleep. She sat at her kitchen table at 6 a.m., staring at her bandaged elbow, replaying the explosion in her mind. The hospital had kept her until 3 in the morning, 12 stitches, a sprained wrist, and a lecture about shock she'd barely heard. The man, Ryder Maddox, was in ICU with a concussion and broken ribs. His son Eli was unharmed, thanks to her. The doctors had called her a hero. Jessie felt like someone who'd simply done what anyone would do. Except most people wouldn't have. And she knew it. "Mom?" Cody appeared in the doorway, his Spider-Man pajamas wrinkled, his hair sticking up in every direction. At 9 years old, he was all elbows and questions. "Your arm looks gross." "Good morning to you too, sweetheart," she managed a smile. "Come here." He climbed into her lap carefully, avoiding her injuries. "Mrs. Patterson says you saved a kid from a burning car." She heard it on the radio. Of course she did. In a town like Millbrook, news traveled faster than the ambulances. "I did what I had to do." "That's so cool," his eyes went wide. "Were you scared?" "Terrified," Jessie admitted. "But sometimes being brave means being scared and doing it anyway." She wished she believed her own words right now. Because the truth was, her hands wouldn't stop shaking. By 10 a.m., Jessie was back at the Route 44 diner. Eddie had offered to cover her shift, but she needed the money. Needed the routine. Needed to feel normal again, even though her entire body ached and her bandages kept catching on her uniform sleeves. The morning rush was the usual crowd: farmers, truckers, the retired guys who came for the coffee and stayed for the gossip. Everyone wanted to talk about last night. Jessie deflected, smiled, poured coffee until her wrists screamed in protest. It was 11:47 a.m. when she heard the first engine. Deep. Rumbling. The kind of sound you feel in your chest before you hear it with your ears. Then another. And another. Jessie looked up from refilling Mr. Peterson's coffee. Through the window, a line of motorcycles was pulling into the parking lot. Black and chrome, moving in formation like a slow-motion parade. 1 became 5. 5 became 20. What in the... Mr. Peterson stood up, his face going pale. More engines. The rumble became thunder. Jessie watched, frozen, as the parking lot filled with bikers. They kept coming, lining both sides of Route 44, their motorcycles gleaming in the noon sun. 50. 70. More than she could count. Every single one wore the same patch on their backs, Black Wind MC. Jessie, Eddie called from the kitchen, his voice tight. Maybe you should come back here. But she couldn't move. The bikers were dismounting now, removing their helmets in unison. Men and women, young and old, all standing silently beside their bikes. They weren't revving engines or shouting. They just stood there, watching the diner. The bell above the door chimed. A man walked in, tall, broad-shouldered, with a thick beard streaked with gray. He wore the Black Wind colors and moved with the kind of authority that made everyone in the diner shrink back slightly. "We're looking for Jessie Monroe," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. Jessie's throat went dry. "That's me." He studied her for a long moment, taking in her bandaged arm, her pale face. Then he nodded to someone outside. The door opened again, and Ryder Maddox walked in. He looked terrible, left eye swollen shut, stitches across his forehead, moving like every step hurt. But he was conscious. Alive. And behind him, holding his hand, was Eli. The boy's face lit up when he saw Jessie. "That's her, Dad. That's the lady." Ryder crossed the diner slowly, and the entire room held its breath. Up close, Jessie could see his eyes were dark brown, intense, and shining with something that looked like tears. "You saved my son," his voice cracked on the last word. The doctor said another 30 seconds and, he stopped, swallowed hard. "You saved my son. I just did what anyone." "No," he cut her off firmly. "No one else did. You did. You ran toward that fire when everyone else ran away. You broke through that window with your bare hands." He glanced at her bandaged elbow. "You bled for him." Eli let go of his father's hand and hugged Jessie around the waist. She stood there, awkward and overwhelmed, and gently patted his back. "We don't forget debts," the bearded man said from behind them. "The Black Wind doesn't forget when someone saves family." Through the window, Jessie could see them now, hundreds of bikers standing in absolute silence, helmets off, hands over their hearts. The entire street was filled with them. She counted rows and kept losing track. 50? 100? "How many?" she started. 299, Ryder said quietly. "Every member within 200 miles. They came to honor you." Jessie felt something break inside her chest, not painful, but overwhelming. Tears burned behind her eyes. "I don't understand. I'm just a waitress. You're the woman who saved my son when she had every reason to run." Ryder's good eye held hers. "That makes you family. And family protects family." He stepped back and raised his right fist to his chest. Outside, every single biker did the same, a salute, silent and solemn, performed with military precision. The diner customers stared. Eddie gripped his spatula like a weapon. And Jessie stood there, a single mom in a coffee-stained uniform with 12 stitches in her elbow, being honored by 300 bikers who'd come from all over Pennsylvania to say thank you. "When you need us," Ryder said softly, "we'll be there." "That's a promise." "What you did last night, that kind of courage deserves more than words." Eli looked up at her. "You're a superhero." Jessie laughed, and it came out half sob. "No, sweetie. I'm really not." But as she watched the bikers outside, still standing, still saluting, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, the universe had just shifted in a way she didn't understand yet. Some doors, once opened, could never be closed. The whispers started before the bikers' engines had even faded down Route 44. Jessie felt them like pinpricks on her skin as she refilled coffee, took orders, pretended everything was normal. Mrs. Patterson leaned toward her husband at booth 2, voice low but not low enough. "Mixing with those people. No good will come of it." Mr. Henderson left without tipping for the first time in 3 years. By the time Jessie's shift ended at 6, her phone had 17 missed calls. Half were from reporters wanting her story. The other half were from Cody's school, her landlord, and her ex-husband's mother, none of which she wanted to deal with. She drove home in her '04 Honda Civic, the one with the duct-taped passenger mirror and the engine light that had been on for 8 months. The apartment complex looked especially depressing in the evening light, peeling paint, cracked sidewalks, chain-link fences separating small patches of brown grass. Cody was at the neighbors. Mrs. Chen, bless her, watched him after school for $20 a week, which was all Jessie could afford. "Your boy is good kid," Mrs. Chen said in her accented English, but her eyes lingered on Jessie's bandaged arm. "But people talking. They say you involved with motorcycle gang now." "I'm not involved with anyone. I just helped a child." Mrs. Chen nodded, but Jessie could see the doubt. In Millbrook, perception was reality, and right now, everyone perceived Jessie Monroe had just become someone different. Someone dangerous. Inside the apartment, Cody was building a Lego spaceship at the coffee table they'd found at a garage sale. Their living room was small, just a couch with a throw blanket hiding the torn cushion, a TV from 2010, and walls bare except for Cody's school artwork. "Mom, you're famous." Cody held up his tablet. "Look, you're on Facebook. Jenny's mom posted about it." Jessie looked at the screen. Sure enough, someone had taken a photo through the diner window, Jessie standing with Ryder while hundreds of bikers saluted outside. The comments were mixed. "So brave. About time someone appreciated her, great, now the criminals know where she works, poor thing's gonna get herself killed, bad judgment getting involved with MC gangs." Jessie closed the tablet. "Time for homework, buddy." "But Mom." "Homework." Later, after Cody was asleep, Jessie sat at the kitchen table with her bills spread out like a losing poker hand. Rent, $950. Utilities, $180. Cody's after-school care, $80. Groceries on what was left, impossible math. She'd been doing this dance for 3 years, ever since Mark left. Her ex-husband, who'd promised forever but delivered 18 months before deciding fatherhood wasn't his thing, the divorce papers came with his new girlfriend's Instagram handle accidentally included in the envelope. That's how Jessie found out about the Cancun trip he'd taken instead of sending child support. She worked doubles at the diner, breakfast shift, then back for dinner, plus weekend mornings at the grocery store stocking shelves. 60-hour weeks that still left her short every month. Cody wore shoes until his toes touched the front because new ones meant choosing between sneakers and electricity. The town knew. Small towns always know. And instead of sympathy, Jessie got judgment. Poor thing. Bad choices. Should have picked a better man. As if poverty were something she'd chosen. As if working herself to exhaustion was a moral failing. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Ms. Monroe?" A woman's voice, crisp and professional. This is Principal Gardner from Millbrook Elementary. I wanted to discuss Cody's safety. Jesse's stomach dropped. Is he okay? He's fine. But given your association with the Black Wind Motorcycle Club, some parents have expressed concerns about safety at school events. We want to ensure all our families feel comfortable. Association? Jesse's voice went sharp. I saved a child's life. That's my association. Of course. We're not suggesting you did anything wrong. But perception matters, Anne. And what? You want me to stay away from my son's school events because I helped someone? A pause. We're asking you to be mindful of the situation. Jessie hung up. She sat there, shaking with anger, with exhaustion, with the unfairness of it all. She'd risked her life for a child, for someone's son, and now her own child might pay the price because people saw motorcycle patches and assumed criminality. Her elbow throbbed. The stitches pulled every time she moved. She'd probably have a scar for life, a permanent reminder of the 30 seconds that had turned her from invisible waitress to that woman involved with bikers. The Black Wind didn't see her as poor. They didn't see her as unlucky or stupid or someone who'd made bad choices. They saw her strength. Her courage. They saw someone who'd run toward fire when everyone else ran away. But the town? The town saw trouble. Jessie walked to Cody's room and watched him sleep. He looked like Mark, same dark hair, same nose. But he had her determination. Her kindness. He was the reason she kept going, kept fighting, kept pretending the bills would somehow pay themselves. I'm doing my best, she whispered to the darkness. I'm doing my best. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Ms. Monroe? This is Ryder Maddox. Jessie's breath caught. How did you get my number? It's on your waitress badge. A pause. Look, I heard about the school calling. Small towns talk, and bikers listen. I'm sorry. You saved my son, and now people are giving you hell for it. It's not your fault. Isn't it? His voice was rough. You wouldn't be dealing with this if Eli and I hadn't crashed in front of your diner. If you hadn't been brave. So yeah, it feels like my fault. Jessie didn't know what to say. I know Black Wind has a reputation, Ryder continued. Some of it earned. Most of it exaggerated. But you should know something, we protect our own. And after what you did, you're one of us now, whether you asked for it or not. I didn't ask for any of this. I know. But sometimes life doesn't ask permission. A long pause. If you need anything, anything at all, you call me. That's not a threat. It's a promise. After he hung up, Jessie sat in the dark kitchen and wondered if accepting help from bikers made her the person everyone already thought she was. Or if maybe, just maybe, she'd already been that person all along, someone strong enough to do what needed doing, regardless of what anyone else thought. The invitation came 3 days later, tucked under her windshield wiper in the diner parking lot. You're invited to the Black Wind Clubhouse. Saturday, 2 p.m. No obligations. Just conversation. Below it, a hand-drawn map and Ryder's phone number. Jessie stood in the parking lot, invitation trembling in her hand, knowing this was a crossroads. Go, and she'd be confirming everything the town suspected. Don't go, and she'd spend the rest of her life wondering what kind of people honored debts with 300 motorcycles. Saturday morning, she dropped Cody at his friend Tyler's house for a playdate, then drove 40 minutes outside Millbrook into the hills where the clubhouse sat, a converted barn painted black with wind-worn wooden beams and a gravel lot full of motorcycles. Her Civic looked pathetic next to them. Ryder met her at the door. The swelling had gone down, but the stitches remained. He looked tired but smiled when he saw her. You came. I'm still deciding if that was smart, Jeezy admitted. He laughed. Honest. I like that, he gestured inside. Come on. No one's gonna bite. The clubhouse was nothing like she'd imagined. No strippers, no drugs, no weapons on the walls. Just a large open space with mismatched furniture, a pool table, photos covering every wall, and a kitchen where someone was making coffee. It smelled like wood smoke and motor oil and something baking. Eli ran up immediately, hugging her legs. You came. Dad said you might not. Hey, buddy, she ruffled his hair. How are you feeling? Good. Want to see my drawing? I drew you punching through the car window like a superhero. Jesse's chest tightened. I'd love to. While Eli pulled her toward a corner table covered in crayons, Ryder watched with something soft in his expression. Around them, other bikers nodded respectfully, keeping their distance but making it clear she was welcome. The bearded man from the diner approached. Jake Cordero. I'm president of this chapter, he extended a hand. Jesse Monroe. We know, his handshake was firm but gentle, mindful of her injured arm. Ryder's told us what you did. Breaking that window with your bare elbow, that's the kind of courage most people don't have. Or the kind of stupidity, Jesse said. Jake smiled. Sometimes they're the same thing, he gestured to a worn leather couch. Sit. Let me tell you about Black Wind. Over coffee and homemade banana bread, made by a biker named Tommy who apparently stress-baked, Jake told the story. Black Wind started in 1987. Group of veterans who came back from service and needed brotherhood. They helped communities, protected neighborhoods, did charity rides, looked out for people who fell through the cracks. That was the foundation. What happened? Jesse asked. Jake's expression darkened. About 5 years ago, another club moved into the territory. Razorback Crew. They run drugs, chop stolen vehicles, launder money. They wanted Black Wind's routes, our connections. Started pushing us toward criminal activity to maintain our presence. And you pushed back? Some of us did. Others, he glanced toward a group of younger members near the pool table. Others thought survival meant becoming what they were. We got pulled into their world, intimidation, territory fights, things that went against everything we'd built. Ryder sat down beside her, Eli climbing into his lap. I've been second in command for 3 years. I watched us change from protectors to threats. Watched good men make bad choices because they thought it was the only way. Why didn't you leave? Because of him, Ryder squeezed Eli gently. His mom died when he was 4. Cancer. Black Wind helped me through it, watched him when I couldn't function, paid medical bills I couldn't cover. They saved us. How do you walk away from that? Jesse understood loyalty born from desperation. She understood debt. But then the crash happened, Ryder continued, his voice rough. I was riding home from a run, legitimate business, for once, and this drunk driver T-boned us. All I remember is flying through the air and thinking, Eli's going to watch me die. Instead, he almost died, Jesse said quietly. Instead, you saved him, Ryder's eyes met hers. And when I woke up in that hospital, with him sleeping beside my bed, I realized something. What's the point of this life if he grows up thinking his father was a criminal? What's the point of brotherhood if it's built on fear? Jake leaned forward. We want out of the reputation, Jesse. Want to be what we were, community protectors. But we don't know how. The Razorbacks won't just let us walk away. They'll see it as weakness. They'll come after you, Jesse said. They'll come after anyone associated with us. Ryder's expression was grim. Which is why I need to be honest, being our friend puts a target on you. The town already suspects you're involved. If Razorback finds out you matter to us, they might use that. Jesse should have been scared. Should have stood up and walked away. Instead, She looked at Eli, at his drawing of her as a superhero, at these men who'd honored a debt when the rest of the town had judged her. "You want to change?" she asked. Ryder nodded. "Then change your actions. Change your purpose. The rest will follow." The room went quiet. Jake tilted his head. "You make it sound simple." "It is simple." "Not easy, simple." Jesse stood. "You want respect? Earn it. You want the Razorbacks to lose power? Stop playing their game. Start playing yours." "Which is what?" Ryder asked. Jesse thought about her life, about working 3 jobs, raising a son alone, being judged by people who'd never struggled the way she had. About finding strength in impossible situations not because she was brave, but because she had no other choice. "You be the people you actually are," she said finally. "Not the people they expect you to be." Ryder stood slowly, Eli still in his arms. "You sound like you've had to do that yourself." "Every single day," Jesse met his eyes. "And every day, I choose to keep trying." Something shifted in that moment, an understanding between people who'd both been judged for things beyond their control, who'd both fought to be more than their circumstances. "Help us," Ryder said quietly. "Help us become what we should be." Jesse looked around the clubhouse, at men who'd honored courage, who'd protected each other, who'd lost their way but wanted to find it again. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Okay." Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the barn's old bones, and somewhere in the distance, different engines rumbled. The Razorbacks were watching. They were always watching. The first warning came on a Tuesday. Jesse was wiping down tables during the afternoon lull when Jake walked into the diner, his face grave. He wasn't wearing his black wind jacket, just a plain flannel shirt, but she recognized the tension in his shoulders immediately. "We need to talk," he said quietly, sliding into booth 7. Jesse poured him coffee without asking. "What happened?" "Razorback crew knows Black Wind is shifting direction. They paid us a visit last night at the clubhouse." He wrapped his hands around the mug. "Said if we back off our territory, there will be consequences." "What kind of consequences?" Jake's jaw tightened. "The kind that hurt people we care about." The implication hung between them like smoke. Jesse set down the coffee pot carefully. "They threatened your families. They threatened anyone close to Black Wind leadership. That includes you, Jesse." He met her eyes. "Ryder told them you're just someone who helped in an accident. That you're not involved. But they don't believe it. They think you're advising us, and they want us to know they can reach you." Jesse's hands went cold. "My son is fine. We've had people watching your building since Saturday. Quiet, distant. You wouldn't have noticed." Jake leaned forward. "But you need to understand what you're dealing with. Razorback crew isn't like us. They don't have codes. Don't have boundaries. If they think hurting you will keep us in line, they won't hesitate. Then maybe I should step back." "Maybe you should." Jake's expression softened. "We'd understand. You didn't ask for this." Jesse thought about Cody, about keeping him safe. That was her job, her only job that truly mattered. But she also thought about Eli, about what it meant to teach children they could change, could be better. What did Ryder say to them? Told them to go to hell. A ghost of a smile crossed Jake's face. Said Black Wind doesn't take orders from criminals anymore. That we're done playing their game. How did they respond? They laughed. Said we've been playing their game for 5 years, can't just walk away now. Jake's voice dropped. Their president, a guy named Vince Cutler, he's the real problem. Smart, ruthless, connected. He's got the local councilman in his pocket, which means he's got protection we don't have. Councilman? Richard Bowman. Been in office 12 years, runs on family values and tough on crime platforms. Meanwhile, he's helping Razorback launder money through city contracts. Jake shook his head. That's how they hold power, fear plus money plus political cover. Jessie absorbed this, her mind working. So you can't fight them directly because they have legal protection. And we can't go to the cops because they'd investigate us too. Black Wind's got history. We'd end up in prison while Razorback walks free. Jake's frustration was palpable. We're trapped. The bell above the door chimed. A man walked in, leather jacket, no patches, but Jessie recognized the look. The way he scanned the room like he was mapping exits. The coldness in his eyes. He sat at the counter, 3 stools down from where Jake's back was turned. Coffee, he said to Jessie, his voice flat. Her instincts screamed. She poured the coffee with steady hands, set it down, and caught his smirk. Nice diner, he said. Be a shame if something happened to it. Jake turned slowly, his entire body coiling. You need to leave. The man sipped his coffee. Free country. I'm just a customer. His eyes slid to Jessie. You the waitress who pulled that kid from the car? Jessie said nothing. Brave. Real brave, he smiled without warmth. Brave people sometimes do stupid things, though. Like getting involved in business that ain't theirs. I said leave. Jake stood. I'm finishing my coffee. The man pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward Jessie. Her stomach dropped. It was a photo of Cody's school, taken that morning, by the looks of it. Kids playing on the playground. Cody visible near the swing set, laughing with Tyler. Cute kid, the man said. What is he, 8? 9? Jake moved fast, grabbing the man's jacket and hauling him off the stool. Eddie appeared from the kitchen with a baseball bat, and suddenly the small diner felt explosive. Touch that phone again, Jake growled, and you won't walk out of here. The man raised his hands in mock surrender, still smiling. No need for violence. Just delivering a message. Black Wind wants to play hero? Fine. But heroes have people they love. People who can get hurt. He dropped a 20 on the counter, pulled free from Jake's grip, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he looked back at Jessie. Tell your biker friends to stay in their lane. We own these roads. He tapped the doorframe twice. Be seeing you around. The door closed. The bell chimed cheerfully, obscene in its normalcy. Jessie's legs gave out. She sat heavily in the nearest booth, her breathing ragged. Eddie locked the door and flipped the sign to closed. Jake pulled out his phone, already calling Ryder. They just threatened Jessie's kid, he said without preamble. Yeah. At the diner. Send 2 bikes to watch the school, now. He hung up and looked at Jessie. We're putting protection on you and Cody. Round the clock. I don't want my son scared. He'll be safer scared than dead. Jake's voice was harsh, then softened. I'm sorry. But this is real now. Razorback just declared war, and they used your son to do it. Jessie's hands shook. She thought about calling Cody, pulling him from school, running, but running to where? Small-town America didn't have many places to hide, and Razorback clearly had reach. What do we do? Her voice came out small. Jake sat across from her. We protect you. And we figure out how to take them down without getting anyone killed. How? I don't know yet. He looked out the window at the empty street. But we will. Because that's what we should have been doing all along, protecting people instead of threatening them. Jessie's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Nice boy you got there. Would be terrible if something happened. Below it, another photo of Cody. This one taken from inside the school grounds. They weren't just watching. They were inside. The brick came through the diner window at 2:17 a.m. Jessie wasn't there, she was home, lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling while Cody slept in the next room. But Eddie called her immediately, his voice shaking. "You need to see this." She threw on clothes, checked on Cody one more time, and drove to the diner through empty streets that suddenly felt full of eyes. A black winged motorcycle followed at a distance, her shadow, whether she wanted one or not. The front window was shattered, glass glittering across the floor like dangerous snow. The brick sat in the middle of booth 3, wrapped in paper. Eddie stood behind the counter with a broom, looking older than his 62 years. "Don't touch it," Jesse said. "We should call the police." "Already did. They came, took photos, said they'd look into it." Eddie's voice was bitter. "Officer Simmons asked if I'd had any trouble with local motorcycle clubs lately, like we're the problem." Jesse picked up the brick with a dish towel. The note was printed on plain paper, untraceable, "Last warning. Back off or your son is next." Her hands went numb. The biker who'd followed her, a younger guy named Marcus, appeared in the doorway. "You okay, Ms. Monroe? Do I look okay?" She heard the snap in her voice, hated it. "Sorry. I just..." "Don't apologize." Marcus scanned the street. "This is on them, not you. Ryder's on his way." He arrived 10 minutes later, Jake close behind. Both took in the damage with expressions that made Jesse understand what dangerous men looked like when they were barely holding back. Ryder picked up the note, read it, and his jaw went tight. "They mentioned Cody by name?" "They didn't need to." Jesse's voice cracked. "We both know who they mean. Then we make sure they can't reach him." Ryder pulled out his phone. "Jake, I need 4 bikes on Jesse's building, rotation every 6 hours. 2 more on the school, distant but visible. And someone competent watching the diner during business hours." "Already on it," Jake replied. "I don't want Cody scared," Jesse said. "He's 9 years old. He shouldn't have to live like he's under siege." Ryder crouched to her eye level. "He won't be scared because he won't know. The bikes watching your building? They'll be parking across the street, look like residents. The ones at school? They'll stay at the coffee shop on the corner. To him, nothing changes. Except everything's changed." Jesse gestured at the broken window. "They threw a brick through my workplace. Threatened my child. How do I pretend that's normal? You don't. You let us handle the threat while you handle being his mom." Ryder's voice gentled. "This is what we do, Jesse. What we should have been doing all along, protecting people who need it. I didn't ask. I know. But I asked you to help us change, and that painted a target on your back." His expression was raw with guilt. "This is my fault. So let me fix it." Over the next 3 days, Jesse learned what quiet, watchful protection felt like. A different biker arrived each morning when she took Cody to school, Marcus, then a woman named Angela, then Tommy who stress-baked. They never approached, never spoke to Cody, just happened to be there. Getting coffee. Reading the paper. Existing in the background. At the diner, someone was always nearby. Not inside, that would scare customers, but in the parking lot. Sitting on their bike. Visible enough to deter, distant enough not to threaten. Her neighbors noticed. Of course they noticed. "You in trouble, Jesse?" Mr. Kowalski asked when she collected her mail. "No. Just some friends looking out for me." He eyed the motorcycle across the street. "Those kinds of friends?" "The kind who show up when you need them," she replied firmly. That afternoon, Principal Gardner called again. "Ms. Monroe, we've noticed unfamiliar motorcycles near the school. Some parents are concerned." Jesse's patience snapped. "You know what concerns me? Someone photographing my son on school grounds. Someone threatening him. So those motorcycles? They're staying until I know my child is safe." We have security. Your security didn't stop someone from getting inside the fence. Jesse's voice went cold. The bikers did. They're not here to cause problems. They're here because I have problems. If parents are uncomfortable, tell them to be uncomfortable with whoever's making threats, not with the people protecting children. She hung up before the principal could respond. That evening, Ryder stopped by the apartment. Cody was doing homework at the kitchen table, and Jesse met Ryder outside on the landing. "How's he doing?" Ryder asked. "Oblivious, thank God." Jesse leaned against the railing. "He thinks Marcus is just a guy who likes the coffee shop near school. Hasn't asked why there's always a motorcycle across the street. Kids see what they expect to see. Adults too." Jesse looked at him. "I'm starting to see the difference between dangerous men and men who are dangerous for the right reasons." Ryder was quiet for a moment. "That's the first time anyone said that about us in years. Maybe you should give people more reasons to say it." "We're trying. Jake's already organizing a food drive for next month. Tommy's talking about doing a toy run for Christmas." Small steps. He met her eyes. "Your idea, change actions, change purpose. It's working. Slowly, but it's working." Meanwhile, Razorback's getting angrier. "Yeah." Ryder's expression darkened. "Which means we need to move faster. We need to stop reacting and start acting." "What does that mean?" "It means we stop playing defense." He straightened. "You said we should expose them instead of fighting them. You were right. So tomorrow, we start gathering evidence. We find out exactly how Razorback operates, who protects them, and how they move money. And then? Then we burn them down. Legally. Completely." His voice was steel wrapped in calm. "They threatened your son, Jesse. That was their mistake. Because now we don't stop until they're finished." Jesse should have been scared of the intensity in his voice. Instead, she felt something else. Relief. Relief that someone was finally fighting back. That she wasn't alone. That maybe, just maybe, courage wasn't about running toward fire once. It was about standing your ground when the fire came for you. The break came from the most unlikely source, a trucker named Dale who'd been coming to Route 44 diner for 15 years. He slid into his usual booth on Thursday morning, looking nervous. When Jesse brought his coffee, he spoke quietly. "I heard you got trouble with Razorback crew." Jesse glanced around. The diner was mostly empty. "News travels. In this business, everything travels." Dale wrapped his hands around the mug. "I haul parts for auto shops between here and Pittsburgh. One of my regular stops is a place called Titan Motors on Route 30. Run by Razorback." Jesse's pulse quickened. "What about it?" "They got me moving parts with serial numbers filed off. High-end stuff, BMW, Mercedes, Harley-Davidson components. I didn't ask questions because they pay cash and I got a kid in college." He looked ashamed. "But after what happened to your boy, the threats. I can't keep quiet anymore." "Have you told the police?" Dale laughed bitterly. "Cops around here? They don't touch Razorback. Word is they got protection from someone high up. But if you and Black Wind are really trying to stop them," he pulled out a crumpled receipt. "These are the shipment dates for the next month. And the shops they're sending parts to." Jesse took the paper with shaking hands. "Why are you helping me?" "Because you saved that kid from a burning car when you didn't have to." Dale's voice cracked. "Because that's what decent people do. And Razorback ain't decent." After he left, Jesse called Ryder immediately. They met at the Black Wind clubhouse that afternoon, Jesse, Ryder, Jake, and Angela, who turned out to be a former paralegal before she joined the club. The worn leather couch had become their war room. Illegal auto shops. Jake spread out the information Dale had provided. "That's how they fund everything. They steal high-end vehicles, chop them for parts, and sell the components to shops across 3 states. And launder the money through what? Ryder asked. Angela pulled out her laptop. I've been digging into city records. Councilman Richard Bowman owns a construction company, Bowman Development. Over the past 3 years, they've received over $2 million in city contracts for road repair and municipal projects. That's not illegal, Jesse said. No. But look at this. Angela turned the screen. The projects are consistently over budget and under-delivered. Last year's road repairs on Highway 9? Supposed to cost $400,000. Final bill was $700,000, and the roads are still falling apart. Where'd that extra $300,000 go? Ryder leaned forward. You think Bowman's inflating contracts and kicking money back to Razorback? I think Bowman's inflating contracts and getting cash from Razorback to make it look legitimate. Angela pulled up another document. I cross-referenced his bank deposits with known Razorback activity. Every time there's a major vehicle theft ring busted somewhere else, meaning inventory they need to move fast, Bowman Development gets a new city contract within 2 weeks. Money laundering, Jake said. They steal cars, chop them, sell parts for cash, then use Bowman's construction company to clean the money through fake city projects. Jessie felt her mind racing. So Bowman gives them legitimacy, and they give him cash. He probably takes a cut for keeping law enforcement off their backs. Exactly. Angela closed the laptop. As long as Bowman's in office, Razorback has protection. They can operate freely because anyone who investigates gets blocked at the city level. Then we take Bowman down, Ryder said flatly. Expose the connection. How? Jesse asked. We can't just accuse a city councilman of corruption without proof. We get proof. Ryder stood, pacing. We document everything. The auto shops, the serial numbers, the money trail. We build a case so solid that even his political connections can't save him. Jake shook his head. That'll take months. Maybe years. And meanwhile, Razorback's threatening Jessie and her kid. Then we work faster. Ryder turned to Jessie. You said we should expose them instead of fighting them. This is how. We don't need violence. We need information. Evidence. We hit them where they're vulnerable, their money and their protection. Jessie thought about the brick through the window, the photos of Cody, the fear that had been sitting in her chest for days. If we do this, we're declaring war. They already declared war when they threatened your son. Ryder's expression was fierce. This is us fighting back the right way. No guns. No territory battles. Just information that destroys them from the inside. What do you need from me? Jessie asked. Your diner. Angela spoke up. Truckers, night shift workers, delivery drivers, they see everything. They're invisible to people like Razorback. If they're willing to talk, we can map out the entire operation. And you think they'll talk to me? They already are. Angela gestured to Dale's receipt. You're someone they trust. Someone who isn't a biker, isn't a cop. Just a waitress who helps people. That makes you valuable in ways we can't be. Over the next week, Route 44 Diner became an intelligence hub. Jessie served coffee and listened. Truckers mentioned routes. Delivery drivers complained about suspicious shipments. Night shift workers gossiped about which businesses stayed open at odd hours. Every piece of information, no matter how small, went to Angela. Ryder's crew started documenting everything. Tommy took photos of vehicles going in and out of Titan Motors. Marcus tracked license plates. Jake interviewed former Razorback members who'd left the club and were willing to talk. Slowly, a picture emerged. Razorback crew operated 4 illegal chop shops across Pennsylvania. They moved an estimated 50 stolen vehicles per month. The parts went to legitimate-looking auto shops who paid cash. That cash went to Bowman Development through fake invoices for construction materials that never existed. It was brilliant. It was untraceable. Almost. "We need the financial records," Angela said during one late-night meeting. "Bank transfers, invoices, something that directly connects Bowman to Razorback money." "How do we get that?" Jesse asked. "We find someone inside who's willing to flip." Ryder met her eyes. "Someone who's tired of being afraid. Someone who wants out but doesn't know how." Jessie thought about her own life before all this, trapped, exhausted, feeling like there was no way forward. She'd been saved not by violence, but by people who'd seen her courage and honored it. "Then we offer them a way out," she said quietly. "We give them what we gave Black Wind, a chance to be better than their circumstances." Ryder smiled, something warm breaking through the intensity. "You're really good at this." "At what?" "Reminding people who they actually are." The investigation began with Tommy's camera and a thermos of coffee. He sat in his truck across from Titan Motors for 3 nights straight, documenting every vehicle that came and went. License plates, makes, models, timestamps. On the 4th night, he watched them unload a silver Lexus SUV that had been reported stolen in Philadelphia 2 days earlier. "Got it," he texted the group. Photo attached. Angela cross-referenced the plate with police reports. Match. She added it to their growing file. Jesse's contribution came during the lunch rush on a Friday. A man in coveralls sat at the counter, complaining to his coworker about working late at some shady-ass garage on Route 30. She refilled his coffee. "Titan Motors?" He looked surprised. "Yeah. How'd you know?" "Heard they pay well." "They do. But the stuff we're working on," he lowered his voice. "VIN numbers filed off, parts that don't match registration. I ain't stupid. I know what's happening. Why do you stay?" "Bills," he shrugged. "Same reason anybody stays anywhere." Jesse leaned closer. "What if there was a way out that didn't leave you holding the bag when they get caught?" His eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" "Someone who believes people deserve second chances." She slid him a napkin with Angela's phone number written on it. "If you want to talk, call this number. No cops. No pressure. Just options." He pocketed the napkin without a word, but 2 days later, Angela got a call. His name was Marcus, different Marcus than the biker. He'd worked at Titan Motors for 6 months and kept meticulous records because he'd suspected eventually he'd need proof he was just a mechanic, not part of the criminal operation. He had photos of VIN plates before they were removed. Receipts for parts purchases. Names of Razorback members who supervised the work. "I got a kid on the way," he told Angela when they met at a truck stop outside town. "Can't risk going to prison for these guys." "You won't," Angela assured him. "But we need more than Titan Motors. We need the money trail." "Do you know how they get paid?" "Cash, mostly. But I overheard Vince Cutler talking about city contracts once. Said something about Bowman making sure the money looked clean." Another piece fell into place. Jake's contribution came from his network. Former Razorback members who'd left the club over the years, some voluntarily, some forced out, had stories. Most were too scared to talk officially, but they'd whisper information to Jake, who'd once helped one of them get out safely. "There's a warehouse near the river," a former member named Donnie told Jake over beers. "That's where they store high-value parts before shipping them out. BMW engines, Tesla batteries, Harley frames. Worth millions. You know the address?" Donnie wrote it on a bar napkin. "I was never there." "You didn't hear it from me." "Never heard of you," Jake agreed. That weekend, Tommy and Marcus the biker conducted surveillance on the warehouse. Saturday night at 2 a.m., they watched a truck arrive and unload crates into the building. The driver matched descriptions of a known Razorback associate. Tommy got photos. Marcus got the truck's DOT number. Angela traced the truck to a shell company owned by, surprise, Bowman Development. There it is, Ryder said when they gathered at the clubhouse Sunday afternoon. Direct connection between the stolen parts and Bowman's company. It's still not enough, Angela cautioned. We need financial records. Bank transfers. Something that proves money moved from Razorback to Bowman. Jesse had been quiet, thinking. What about his construction sites? If the contracts are fake, the work must be shoddy. Someone must have complained. Angela's eyes lit up. City records. Complaints, inspection reports, budget overruns, that's all public information. She spent the next 3 days in the Millbrook City Hall records room, pulling files. What she found was damning. Every project Bowman Development completed had complaints. Residents reporting unfinished work. City inspectors noting code violations that were mysteriously never followed up on. Budget amendments that made no sense. Look at this, Angela showed Jesse and Ryder a spreadsheet she'd created. Highway 9 repairs, budgeted $400,000, final cost $700,000. But the actual materials purchased? $150,000 worth. Where'd the other $550,000 go? Into someone's pocket, Ryder said darkly. The final piece came from an unexpected source, Helen, the night clerk at Millbrook Bank. She came to the diner at 11 p.m., when the place was nearly empty. Sat at the counter and waited until Jesse approached. I heard you're looking into Richard Bowman. Jesse's heart raced. Who told you that? Doesn't matter. I've been working at that bank for 22 years. I process his business accounts. Helen's hands shook around her coffee cup. He's been making large cash deposits monthly. Amounts that don't match his construction business's income patterns. Can you prove it? I can't give you official records, that's illegal. But I kept copies of deposit slips that seemed wrong. Dates, amounts, account numbers. She pulled an envelope from her purse. I'm retiring next month. Don't have to be scared anymore. Jesse took the envelope carefully. Why are you doing this? Because my grandson goes to Millbrook Elementary. Same school as your boy. Helen met her eyes. Someone threatened your child to protect criminals. That's where I draw the line. Inside the envelope, 3 years of deposit records showing monthly cash infusions into Bowman Development's accounts, each between $50,000 and $80,000, with no corresponding invoices or declared income sources. When Jesse, Ryder, and Angela spread everything out on the clubhouse table, the full picture emerged. Serial numbers from stolen vehicles, documented by mechanic Marcus. Photos of illegal shipments at Titan Motors and the warehouse. Financial records showing unexplained cash deposits. City contracts with massive overruns and no completed work. Testimony from witnesses willing to speak if guaranteed protection. This is it, Angela said softly. This is enough to bring them down. Jake studied the evidence. Who do we give it to? Local cops are compromised. State police, Angela suggested. Or federal auto theft investigators. And the press, Jesse added. Politicians hate bad publicity more than they hate prison. Ryder looked at each of them. Once we do this, there's no going back. Razorback will know it was us. They'll come hard. They're already coming hard, Jesse said. At least this way, we hit back. Then we do it. Ryder's voice was steel. All at once. State police, FBI, every news outlet in Pennsylvania. We bury them in evidence so deep they can't threaten their way out. They had their weapon. Now they just needed to use it before Razorback realized what was coming. The call came at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Ryder's voice was barely recognizable. Eli's gone. Jessie's blood turned to ice. She was wiping down tables, but the rag fell from her hands. What do you mean gone? I picked him up from school. Stopped for gas on Route 44. Went inside to pay, 2 minutes, Jessie, I was gone 2 minutes, and when I came back, the truck door was open. He's gone. His breathing was ragged, panicked. They took my son. Eddie looked over from the register, alarmed. Jessie grabbed her keys. I'm coming. Where are you? Shell station, mile marker 7. Jake's already here. His voice broke. We're trying not to lose it. Jessie ran. When she arrived, 6 black wind bikes were already there. Ryder stood by his truck, looking like a man barely holding himself together. His hands shook. His face was white. Security footage? Jessie asked Jake. Cameras were spray-painted over this morning. They planned this. Jake's expression was murderous. Vince Cutler called Ryder 5 minutes after it happened. Said if we don't back off the investigation, we'll find Eli in pieces. Jessie felt rage ignite in her chest. We call the police. No cops, Ryder said hoarsely. Cutler said no cops or Eli dies. We have maybe a few hours before, he couldn't finish. Then we find him. Jessie forced her voice steady even though her hands trembled. We find him now. They're not going to kill him, he's their leverage. But we need to move fast. Marcus ran over from his bike. I'm checking every Razorback property we know about. Tommy's already at the warehouse. Angela's tracking their known associates. They won't take him somewhere we know, Jessie said, thinking hard. Too obvious. They'd go somewhere we wouldn't think to look. Then where? Ryder's voice was desperate. Jessie closed her eyes, forcing herself to think past the fear. Who have we seen lately? Anyone unusual at the diner, around town, someone who seemed like they were watching? Half the Razorback crew has been watching, Jake said. No, someone specific. Someone who'd know our movements but wouldn't be recognized as Razorback. Jessie's mind raced through faces, customers, people who'd passed through. Then it clicked. Wait. 3 days ago. There was a guy eating lunch at the diner. Said he was a traveling salesman, but he asked too many questions about the bikers outside. You remember what he looked like? Mid-30s, brown jacket, drove a blue Honda Accord. She pictured him clearly now. He paid cash and left too big a tip. I remember because nobody tips that well on a Tuesday lunch. Angela pulled out her laptop from her motorcycle saddlebag. Check the diner's parking lot camera. What time? Around 1 p.m. Angela pulled up the footage, scrubbed through until Jessie pointed. There. That's him. They zoomed in on the license plate. Angela ran it through a database. Registered to Scott Delaney. Address is an apartment complex in Northside. That's 20 minutes from here, Marcus said. Could be a dead end, Jake warned. Or it could be where they're holding Eli. Jessie looked at Ryder. We have to try. They moved as a convoy, 8 motorcycles and Jessie's Honda following behind. No sirens, no attention, just controlled speed and desperation. The apartment complex was run down, the kind of place where people minded their own business. Angela stayed with the bikes, monitoring police scanners. The rest of them moved quietly up the stairs to apartment 2C. Jake knocked. No answer. Ryder didn't wait. He kicked the door open. The apartment was empty, but recently occupied. Fast food wrappers, an ashtray full of cigarettes. And on the table, Eli's backpack. He was here. Ryder grabbed it, his voice cracking. Jessie scanned the room. They moved him. But where? Marcus found a receipt near the trash. Gas station purchase. 30 minutes ago. Route 9 heading north. That's toward the state line, Jake said. They're moving him out of the area. Then we intercept them. Ryder was already moving toward the door. Back on the bikes, Angela worked her magic, calling in favors, checking traffic cameras along Route 9. 20 minutes later, she found it, a blue Honda Accord, speeding north, picked up on a camera near mile marker 15. They've got a 10-minute lead, she reported. The Black Wind motorcycles opened up, engines roaring as they pursued. Jessie followed in her Civic, heart hammering, phone ready to call 911 if things went wrong. They caught up near an abandoned rest stop. The Honda was parked behind the building. Through the grimy windows, Jessie could see two men inside, and Eli in the back seat, duct tape over his mouth, eyes wide and terrified. Jake made hand signals. The bikers spread out, surrounding the vehicle silently. No guns. No weapons. Just overwhelming presence. Ryder approached the driver's door and knocked on the window. The driver, Scott Delaney, nearly jumped out of his skin. He looked at the 8 bikers surrounding his car and went pale. "Get out," Ryder said calmly. "Nice and slow." "Vince is gonna kill you for this," Scott stammered. "Vince is gonna be in federal prison." Ryder's voice was deadly quiet. "Now get out before I drag you out." Scott and his partner emerged, hands raised. Jake zip-tied them while Marcus opened the back door and carefully removed the tape from Eli's mouth. "Dad!" Eli launched himself into Ryder's arms, sobbing. Ryder held his son like he'd never let go, his entire body shaking. "I got you. I got you, buddy. You're safe." Jessie called 911. "I'm reporting a kidnapping. 2 suspects in custody, child recovered safely." When the state police arrived 15 minutes later, they found Scott and his partner secured, Eli wrapped in his father's jacket, and 8 bikers standing calmly with their hands visible. The senior trooper looked skeptical. "You expect me to believe you recovered a kidnapping victim without violence?" "We tracked them. Surrounded them. They surrendered." Jake's voice was level. "We're not criminals, officer. We're fathers protecting a child." Scott, sitting handcuffed in the patrol car, made the mistake of talking. "I want a deal. I'll tell you everything about Razorback Crew. The chop shops, the money laundering, Councilman Bowman, everything." The trooper's eyebrows rose. "You want to start from the beginning?" Jessie caught Ryder's eye. This was it, the break they needed. One of Razorback's own, scared enough to flip. Later, after statements were given and Eli was checked by paramedics, Ryder found Jessie in the parking lot. "You saved him again," he said quietly. "You saved him. I just remembered a face." "You remembered because you pay attention. Because you care." He stepped closer. "Jessie, what you've done for us, for me, for Eli. You'd do the same." "Yeah. I would." His expression softened. "Which is why this works. Because we're not so different, you and me." Jessie looked at this man who'd gone from stranger to ally to something more complicated, and realized he was right. They were both fighters who'd been forced to be. Scott Delaney talked for 6 hours straight. In the state police interrogation room, with his lawyer present and a deal on the table, he laid out the entire Razorback operation. The chop shops, the money laundering, the protection racket. He named names. Gave addresses. Explained how Councilman Bowman received cash payments disguised as construction materials purchases. "Vince Cutler pays Bowman $50,000 monthly," Scott said into the recorder. "In exchange, Bowman makes sure local cops look the other way and city contracts come through for laundering. I've seen the handoffs myself." By Wednesday morning, state police had enough for warrants. But Jessie, Ryder, and Angela weren't waiting for slow bureaucracy. They'd spent Tuesday night making copies, dozens of them. Every piece of evidence they'd gathered, photos, financial records, witness statements, serial numbers, surveillance footage. Angela organized it into 3 identical packages, each one a roadmap to Razorback's criminal empire. Who gets them? Ryder asked as they worked in the clubhouse at 2 a.m. Federal Auto Theft Task Force, Angela said, sealing the first package. They'll coordinate with state police. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Jesse added, addressing the second. Investigative reporters who've covered corruption before. They'll run the story even if officials try to bury it. And the district attorney's office, Jake finished, holding the third package. Direct to the AG, bypassing local jurisdiction entirely. Thursday morning, all 3 packages were delivered simultaneously. By Thursday afternoon, the dominoes started falling. Federal agents raided Titan Motors at 3 p.m. Jesse watched the news coverage from the diner, customers gathering around the TV as helicopters showed agents leading employees out in handcuffs. Stolen vehicle parts worth millions were loaded into evidence trucks. That's the place where Dale used to deliver, Mrs. Patterson said, her voice awed. I can't believe it was illegal this whole time. The warehouse by the river was hit next. More arrests. More evidence. At 5 p.m., the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's website published their story. Local councilman linked 2 auto theft ring, federal investigation reveals years of corruption. The article was devastating. They'd verified every detail Angela provided, interviewed Scott Delaney's lawyer, obtained independent confirmation from federal sources. Bowman's photo was front and center, alongside images of the fake construction sites and documentation of the fraudulent contracts. The comments section exploded. Millbrook residents who'd complained about unfinished roads for years suddenly understood why their concerns had been ignored. Jesse's phone buzzed. A text from Ryder, turn on Channel 7. She grabbed the remote. A press conference was starting, FBI Special Agent Monica Ross at the podium, flanked by state police and the Attorney General. Today, federal and state law enforcement executed coordinated raids resulting in the arrest of 14 individuals connected to a multi-state auto theft and money laundering operation, Agent Ross announced. The Razorback Motorcycle Club, operating out of Millbrook, Pennsylvania, has been dismantled. Additionally, we're announcing charges against Millbrook City Councilman Richard Bowman for conspiracy, money laundering, and public corruption. The camera flashed to footage of Bowman being led from his office in handcuffs, his expensive suit looking ridiculous next to the federal agents in windbreakers. The investigation was aided by multiple civilian witnesses and physical evidence gathered over several months, Agent Ross continued. This is a reminder that criminal enterprises, no matter how well connected, cannot operate above the law. Eddie let out a whoop. Other customers applauded. Jessie felt her knees go weak with relief. It was over. Actually over. Her phone rang. Ryder. Did you see? His voice was thick with emotion. I saw. Vince Cutler was arrested at his house an hour ago. 14 Razorback members in custody. The others scattered, clubs finished, a pause. We did it, Jessie. We actually did it. We did it the right way, she corrected softly. That evening, Jake called an emergency meeting at the Black Wind Clubhouse. Every member attended, 47 bikers filling the space, standing room only. Jake stood at the front, his voice carrying. Today, the Razorback crew fell. Not because we fought them in the streets. Not because we intimidated or threatened or used violence. But because we gathered evidence, protected witnesses, and let the law do what it's supposed to do. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. This is who Black Wind was always meant to be, Jake continued. Protectors. People who stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, he gestured to Ryder. Our brother nearly lost his son. But instead of revenge, we chose justice. And because of that choice, 14 criminals are behind bars and a corrupt politician is facing prison. Someone started clapping. Then another. Soon the entire clubhouse erupted in applause. Ryder stepped forward, Eli beside him. "I want to thank someone who isn't Black Wind but who showed us what we could be." He looked directly at Jessie, standing near the back. Jessie Monroe risked everything, her safety, her son's safety, her livelihood, to help us become better. She didn't have to. She had every reason to walk away. But she stayed, and she fought alongside us. Jessie felt her face flush as every biker turned to look at her. "You showed us that courage isn't about being the toughest or the most feared," Ryder continued. "It's about doing what's right even when you're terrified. About choosing the hard path because it's the good path." His voice cracked. "You saved my son twice. Once from fire. Once from becoming someone who thought violence was the only answer." Eli ran to Jessie, hugging her tight. She held him, tears burning behind her eyes. Jake raised his beer. "To Jessie Monroe. Honorary Black Wind. The woman who reminded us who we are." "To Jessie," the crowd echoed. Later, after the celebration died down and members started heading home, Ryder found Jessie on the porch. "The news is saying Bowman's facing 20 years, he said, sitting beside her. "His political career is over. The construction company's being seized. Every dirty contract is being investigated. Good. Razorback's charter is revoked. The National MC organization disavowed them completely. They're done." He looked at the stars. "We won, Jessie. We actually won." "You won," she corrected. "Black Wind chose to be better. I just reminded you that you could." "No," Ryder met her eyes. "You showed us how. There's a difference." In the distance, sirens wailed, probably more arrests, more evidence being processed. The sound that used to make Jessie nervous now sounded like justice. "What happens now?" she asked. Ryder smiled. "Now we figure out what Black Wind looks like when we're the good guys." "You were always the good guys," Jessie said softly. "You just forgot for a while. Then I guess it's time we remembered permanently." The meeting happened 3 weeks after Razorback's fall. Every Black Wind member gathered at the clubhouse on a cold November Saturday. The atmosphere was different now, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. But there was also uncertainty. With Razorback gone and their reputation partially redeemed, they stood at a crossroads. Jake called the meeting to order. "Brothers and sisters, we need to decide what Black Wind becomes now. We've proven we're not the criminals people thought we were. But that's not enough. We need to decide who we actually are." Tommy stood first. "I vote we go back to what we were. Community protection. Helping people who need it." "Agreed," Angela said. "But we need to be intentional about it. Public. Visible. Show people through action, not just words." "Some of us aren't sure," a younger member named Derek spoke up. "I joined Black Wind because we were feared. Because we had power. If we become a charity club, what's the point?" Murmurs of agreement from a few others. Ryder stood, Eli beside him. "I understand. I felt that way once. Power feels good, especially when you've never had much of it. But let me ask you something, Derek. When you're old and your kids ask what you did with your life, what do you want to tell them? That you were feared? Or that you mattered?" Derek looked uncomfortable. "It's not that simple." "It is exactly that simple," Ryder's voice was firm but not harsh. 3 weeks ago, my son was kidnapped because we chose power over purpose. Because we'd spent years making enemies instead of earning respect. And you know who saved him? Not violence. Not intimidation. Information. Strategy. And a waitress who remembered a face. He gestured to Jessie, sitting quietly in the corner. She hadn't planned to attend, but Jake had insisted. "Jesse showed us something we'd forgotten," Ryder continued. "That real strength isn't about making people afraid. It's about making them feel safe. About standing up when it matters, not just when it benefits you." Jake stepped forward. "So here's the choice: we can go back to trying to hold power through fear. Some of you might prefer that, and I won't judge. But you'd have to leave Black Wind to do it. Because as of today, this club stands for something different." He unrolled a poster Angela had designed. It showed the Black Wind logo, the spiral with wings, but beneath it, new words: protect, serve, ride. "This is what we're becoming," Jake announced. "A brotherhood dedicated to community service. We'll do food drives for families who need them. Organize toy runs for kids at Christmas. Join search and rescue operations when people go missing. Partner with disaster response teams when Pennsylvania needs help." "That's not being a motorcycle club," someone muttered. "That's being the Rotary Club with bikes." "No," Angela corrected. "The Rotary Club doesn't have 47 members who can mobilize in minutes. Who know these roads better than anyone. Who have connections across 3 states. We have resources, skills, and reach that most organizations don't. We can actually make a difference." Tommy raised his hand. "I'm in. I've been wanting to do a food drive for months. My mom used to rely on food banks when I was a kid. I know how much it matters." "I'm in too," Marcus said. "I've got search and rescue training from the military. Always wanted to use it for something good." One by one, hands went up. Not everyone. Derek and 3 others left during the vote, saying this wasn't what they'd signed up for. But 43 members remained. 43 people choosing purpose over power. Jake nodded. "Then it's decided. Black Wind becomes what it was always meant to be." The next day, Jesse met Ryder and Angela at the clubhouse to plan their first community event. "Thanksgiving is in 3 weeks, Jesse said, spreading papers across the table. Millbrook Community Center usually does a free dinner, but they're understaffed and underfunded. We take it over," Ryder said immediately. "Black Wind sponsors the whole thing. Food, setup, volunteers. We make it the biggest Thanksgiving dinner this town's ever seen." Angela made notes. "I'll contact the food distributors. Tommy can coordinate cooking, he's already excited about it. We'll need people for serving, cleanup, delivery for folks who can't leave their homes. And we make it clear this is from Black Wind," Jesse added. "We don't hide. We show up in our colors and we serve this community. Let people see who you really are." Over the next 2 weeks, Black Wind transformed. Tommy organized the kitchen crew. Angela handled logistics and permits. Marcus coordinated volunteers. The local grocery stores donated food after Jake personally visited each one, explaining what they were doing and why. The diner became planning headquarters. Jesse watched bikers who'd once been feared now sitting with church volunteers, coordinating meal plans and dietary restrictions. Mrs. Patterson, who'd clutched her purse every time a biker entered, was now laughing with Angela about the best recipe for cranberry sauce. "This is strange," Eddie observed, watching Tommy teach 2 bikers how to properly carve a turkey. "Good strange, but strange. People are more than their worst moments," Jesse said. "They just need the chance to prove it." Principal Gardner called Jesse that week. Her voice was different, respectful, even apologetic. "Ms. Monroe, I heard Black Wind is organizing the community Thanksgiving dinner. The PTA would like to help. If that's appropriate?" Jesse smiled. "It's very appropriate. Thank you." Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and clear. The community center buzzed with activity. Bikers in Black Wind colors worked alongside church groups, PTA volunteers, and regular citizens. Over 200 people came for dinner, families who couldn't afford a Thanksgiving meal, elderly folks who would have spent the day alone, homeless individuals who rarely felt welcome anywhere. Jesse served mashed potatoes beside Ryder. Cody helped Eli hand out rolls. Jake carved turkey with the Methodist pastor. It was chaotic and loud and absolutely beautiful. At one point, an elderly veteran named Mr. Kowalski approached Ryder. "You're the bikers everyone was scared of?" "Yes, sir," Ryder said respectfully. Mr. Kowalski looked around the room, at families eating, children laughing, people being cared for. "Funny. All I see are good people doing good work." He extended his hand. "Thank you for this." Ryder shook it, his throat tight. "Thank you for letting us try." That evening, after cleanup, the Black Wind members gathered outside the community center. Exhausted, covered in gravy stains, smiling. "First event done," Jake announced. "Next month, toy run for the Children's Hospital. January, we're partnering with the fire department for winter safety training. This is just the beginning." Jesse stood with Ryder, watching the group. "How does it feel?" "Like we're finally doing what we should have been doing all along." He looked at her. "You started all this, you know. One moment of courage changed everything." "No," Jesse said softly. "You all chose to change. I just reminded you that you could." But they both knew the truth. Sometimes all people need is someone who believes they're capable of better. 6 months later, Route 44 diner looked different. The front window had been replaced, obviously, but what changed more was the bulletin board inside. Where there used to be only shift schedules and health inspection certificates, now there were flyers: Black Wind's monthly food drive schedule, upcoming charity rides, a missing person alert with photos of a teenager from 2 towns over. Jessie wiped down the counter on a warm April morning, humming to herself. The breakfast rush had just ended, and the diner had been packed, not unusual anymore. Black Wind members came for coffee before rides. Community volunteers stopped by to coordinate events. Even tourists occasionally pulled off Route 44 because they'd read about the biker club that helps people. The bell above the door chimed. Tommy entered with Marcus, both wearing their colors, but the patches had changed. Beneath the Black Wind logo now sat new insignias: Search and Rescue, Community Outreach, Disaster Response. "Morning, Jesse," Tommy said cheerfully. 2 coffees and whatever pie you're pushing today." "Apple." "Fresh this morning." She poured their coffee. "How'd the search go last night?" "Found the kid," Marcus reported. 10-year-old wandered away from a campground near Clearfield. Cold and scared, but safe. Parents were crying when we brought him back. 4th successful search this year," Tommy added proudly. "We're getting good at this." The door opened again. Angela and Jake, followed by a reporter from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. "Ms. Monroe?" The reporter extended her hand. "Rachel Kim. I'm doing a follow-up story on the Razorback takedown, focusing on community transformation. Mind if I ask a few questions?" Jesse glanced at Jake, who nodded encouragingly. "Sure. But the real story isn't me." "That's not what anyone says." Rachel pulled out her recorder. "You're credited with changing an entire motorcycle club's direction. The Black Wind went from feared to celebrated in less than a year." "How?" Jesse thought about that night, the crash, the fire, the split-second decision to run toward danger instead of away. "I didn't change them. They chose to change. I just reminded them who they already were underneath the reputation." "And now?" Rachel gestured to the bulletin board. "Black Wind runs community programs, partners with law enforcement, does charity work." "What's that like?" "It's like watching people become their best selves," Jesse said simply. "It's been the privilege of my life." Rachel interviewed Jake and Angela next, then left to photograph the clubhouse. After she'd gone, Jesse's phone buzzed. A text from Cody's school, spring concert tonight, 7 p.m. Cody has a solo. She smiled. Life had stabilized in ways she'd never imagined 6 months ago. The diner was thriving, apparently people liked supporting a place connected to a good news story. Her tips had doubled. She'd finally paid off her credit cards. Cody had new shoes that actually fit. But more than the financial stability, she had community. Real community. People who showed up when she needed them, who'd proven that protection wasn't about control, it was about care. Evening came. Jessie arrived at Millbrook Elementary's auditorium to find it packed. She spotted Ryder and Eli saving her a seat near the front. Ryder had changed too, the perpetual tension in his shoulders was gone. He smiled easier now. Laughed more. "Heard you talk to the Post-Gazette," he said as she sat down. "They wanted the story. I told them the truth. Which is that people are capable of extraordinary change when someone believes they can." Ryder's expression softened. "You know the town council officially thanked Black Wind last week? Presented us with a community service award." Jake almost cried. "I heard. I also heard you're starting a scholarship fund for kids who lost parents to addiction or violence." Eli's idea, actually. Ryder glanced at his son, who was talking excitedly with Cody in the wings. "He asked why we couldn't help other kids who didn't have both parents. Said you helped us, so we should help others." Jessie's throat tightened. "He's a good kid." "He is. Because he's got good examples." Ryder met her eyes. "You never asked for any of this, Jessie. You were just trying to survive, trying to raise your son, trying to make it through another day. And somehow you still found the courage to save mine. Anyone would've. No. They wouldn't have. Most people run from fires. You ran toward it." He paused. "You saved my son. That means you saved me. We don't forget debts like that." "I think you've repaid it," Jessie said softly. "Several times over." "Maybe. But there's something I need to say." Ryder shifted to face her fully. "These past 6 months, watching Black Wind transform, seeing my son grow up proud of who his father is, none of that happens without you. You didn't just save Eli from a burning car. You saved all of us from becoming people we'd hate." Jessie blinked back tears. "I just reminded you how." "No." Ryder's voice was firm but gentle. "You showed us it was possible. You stood beside us when everyone else stepped away. You risked your safety, your son's safety, everything, to help us be better. That's not just reminding. That's leading." The lights dimmed. The concert was starting. But before they turned their attention to the stage, Ryder said one more thing. "You didn't just save my boy, Jessie. You saved all of us." Jessie replied, the words she'd been carrying for months finally finding voice. "No, you saved yourselves. I just reminded you how." The auditorium filled with music, children's voices rising in harmony, pure and hopeful. On stage, Cody stood for his solo, confident and smiling. Beside him in the audience, Eli clapped enthusiastically. 2 boys who'd been saved, growing up watching adults choose to be better. Outside, 43 motorcycles sat in the parking lot, their chrome gleaming under streetlights. Each one bore patches that now meant protection instead of fear. Community instead of territory. Brotherhood that built instead of destroyed. The Route 44 diner's neon sign flickered in the distance, that lonely lighthouse that had witnessed everything, a crash that changed lives, a choice that changed a community, a moment of courage that rippled outward until it transformed an entire town. Jessie watched her son sing, felt Ryder's steady presence beside her, and thought about the strange journey from that September night to this April evening. She'd broken a window with her bare elbow, bled for a child she didn't know, and somehow that single act had rewritten the story of 43 people who'd forgotten they could be heroes. The redemption arc was complete. Not because anyone had been perfect, but because they'd all chosen to try. And sometimes, that's all redemption really is, the choice to be better than yesterday, made over and over until it becomes who you are. The end.